Hello, welcome to my video film review of the movie Major League from 1989. The movie is rated R, so I will say if you ever plan on watching this movie with your family, maybe anybody under the age, realistically 16 probably should be in the room. Other than that, it's not a very vulgar movie. The synopsis of it goes is that the an exotic dancer who was the wife of a team owner, which of course the team was the Cleveland Indians, died, and the wife was named Rachel Phelps. She took over and wanted to genuinely to prove the team, but she thinks everything about the team in Cleveland just isn't going to work. Everything from the fans, the stadium, and the staff and players. She thinks it needs to all be left behind, but in order to get the waiver from the MLB to move, she needs to finish dead last. And to achieve this, she pretty much hires everybody she knows is washed, not very good, or very unreliable. And they will go throughout the season and they'll take steps to improve under the coach Lou Brown. Um, but as the season progresses and they finally start getting win streaks, uh, their biggest doubter, which is also their number one hater, Mrs. Rachel Phelps, finally let the ball slip to Mr. Lou through one of the other managers of the team that it was intentional that the team was set up this way to be this bad. And that once that word got to the players and Mr. Lou, the team coach, they actually really got determined to do better and to win these ball games. And they actually used their spite to make it all the way to the ALCS, in which they defeat the Yanks. And that is like the peak moment of the movie, as it builds up to them eventually reaching the ALCS and winning that league championship that they hadn't won in 40-something years. And as a Georgia fan who root for the Georgia Bulldogs, I understand that.
Here's a list of the players we'll be inviting to camp.
I never heard of half of these guys. The ones I do know are way past their prime. Most of these guys never had a prime. This guy here is dead.
Cross him off then.
So, there are a lot of characters in this movie to focus on. Really, the ones you really need to look at are the team itself, the baseball announcer at the home Cleveland games, and he does travel at the ALCS game. I actually honorably mentioned the Cleveland Indians fans in the movies because they are shown multiple times reacting through either the TVs or the newspapers, or it's just them two coworkers talking about the Indians because everybody in Cleveland is rooting for the Indians, even though they are the worst team in the MLB at the beginning of that season. So we start off with the owners, the owner and coach. Owner is Mr. Rachel Phelps. Phelps is very determined, and she's kind of cocky with the things she cuts in the team budget, the amenities, the quality of the rides they get to the away games. She literally tries to wear them down the hardest way she can. And Mr. Lou Brown, who is the older gentleman you see right here, is the team coach. He does not like Mrs. Rachel. Actually, very much despises her to the point that he didn't even care that he was butt naked, front and back, right in front of me. The other important characters in the movie, with the players, the veterans are the ones that guide the new people. Specifically, Jack Taylor. He's kind of like, I want to say he's kind of like a team captain in a way. He's got a lot of experience, similar to Eddie Harris, who is the veteran pitcher, and Roger Dorn, who plays left field. Now, Roger is a bit of a suck-up. He doesn't really like playing ball too seriously because he doesn't want to get injured. He has a half commitment to a lot of the games he plays fairly early on in the season. You know, Mr. Eddie Harris kind of goes underrated for part of the movie. His best interactions are, of course, with the new guy, Pedro Serrano, guy from the Dominican Republic. He's like the serious comedic relief, in my opinion, compared to Wesley Snipes' Willie Mae Hayes, who's very much not serious. Speaking of Willie Mae Hayes, I think it's so funny that he took the name Willie Mae and then Willie Mae Hayes. I thought that was a very neat line in the movie. He's actually kind of a cool underdog story. The Indians are the underdog story, but even within that, Mr. Snipes' character is also an underdog because the dude just shows up, tries. Dude has no league, dude has no rep, he just shows up. And all those characters really set the movie for me. It felt like you were immersed in the story of this 1989 Cleveland Indians team.
Crisco, Bardol, Vegesil. Any one of them will give you another 2 to 3 inches drop on your curveball. Of course, if umps are watching me close, I just put a little jalapeno inside my nose, get it running, and if I need to load the ball up a little, just like the nose. You put snot on the ball? I haven't got an arm like you. I gotta put anything on it I can find.
The highs and lows of Major League um, are interesting indeed. Really, there's only one low because the plot part of the movie kind of just didn't make sense to me. Up until the end, of course, I guess it did make sense, but that has to really do with Jake's relationship with Lynn. And I'm gonna be honest, the fact that he can just walk back in that part of the movie and just do that, yeah, it's epic man moment, but it's also like the fact that she was already planning to get engaged with that other guy. But at the end of the movie, when she's obviously at the game and she shows that she's ringless, because of course at that point, if you know how the baseball season works, she would have long been already married by the time they played the ALCS game. Uh, and of course Jake sees it, smiles to acknowledge that he has his window still open to her. It's really only a low from my point of view because it's the fact that she had already tried to move on, was with the guy she planned to marry. Honestly, the best highs of the movie are the beginning, when they're creating the team, and the spring training was hilarious. But it's also cool to see the players develop not only in their skill but in their relations with each other. And throughout the highs, it keeps peaking. Like boom, you got their, they start winning a couple games. You've got when they finally reach an even record, and at that point in the movie, that is when Mr. Luke Brown has been told about the plot for the team to intentionally tank. And when they get in that team meeting and they decide that they aren't going to do that, and of course the poster was hilarious with the motivation. And that actually began the second peak of the movie's long start with the win streak montage, where they had seen him had won 5 to 6 games in a row. And then, of course, the American Express ad, that was pretty funny. And it was a good, neat bit because it kind of made it a little realistic if you think about it, because back in the day, it wasn't uncommon for sports and advertisement to be together in that kind of partnership. Of course, it's not as big as it is now, where a player can have a single brand to himself, versus back then the whole team shared the brand image. So it was really cool to see that. Of course, Willie May does his split. As you see, we're contenders now. And that all leaded up into the ALCS, which is the high of the highest in the movie. And honestly, you don't really get the hair standing up until Mr. Ricky Vaughn comes out. Because remember, if you've seen this movie, Vaughn doesn't start the game. Actually, they prefer to start Harris. But Harris gets gassed quick, and not quick, but he eventually does get gassed. And to be the closer, it would be none other than Charlie Sheen's character, uh, Ricky Vaughn, Wild Thing. And of course, the crowd goes crazy. Wild Thing plays. The owner, Richie Phillips, says, "I hate this effing song." Oh man, I couldn't imagine being in theaters when that came on. I bet you everybody probably, even not just the fans of the movie, but people cheering as a fan in the theater, uh, probably had that same reaction. I would have loved to have been there. And that was probably the best note they could have ended the movie on. They didn't say, oh, well, they went on and won the World Series. No, the peak of the movie is they won the ALCS. Because when you are the Cleveland Indians and you haven't won a pennant in 40 years, that's worth something. And that's what the movie's highs teach you. The low really only has to do with the romantic part, because it just didn't make sense coming from Lynn's perspective. But hey, I get it. I'm not a movie writer for a reason.
Want a word with you here? Or that list sit-ups you want me to do? Got it right here in my contract. Says I don't have to do any calisthenics. I don't feel they're necessary. What do you think about that?
And after that best scene, I would like to share some of the best quotes of the movie, in my opinion. Simply the ones that either had the most humor or that struck me the most. And of course, Mr. Harry Dole, if you might remember, is the announcer for the Cleveland Indians. And when the Cleveland Indians do so bad in one of their games, he says, "That's all we got. One God hit," because I believe they were playing the Yankees, and the Yankees were just laying it on them as they do most people. And I just thought that was funny because the dude clearly, as an announcer, does not care that he cusses. The young guy next to him says, "You can't say GD on air," and I thought that was pretty funny because it did highlight the desperation. We can't even. We got one, just one. I mean, it did feel pretty pathetic in the moment, but that's okay. The rest of the movie clearly redeemed that moment for the team. Of course, that's their ship. I cannot hit the I cannot hit the curveball. Pedro Serrano has some of the best lines in the movie, but not just because of his English, but because of the stuff he says, because how he describes the game of baseball to him. He participates in it as a man with rituals. And if he doesn't do his rituals correctly, clearly it affects his ball play. And also, I think that could be highlighted when Eddie actually gets a hold of some Tobu's liquor, which Serrano tells him not to touch. And of course, Eddie promptly gets injured during the game that he steals Tobu's booze. Uh, Anything Serrano says needs to be listened to and recorded and kept in a sound box. So the next time I watch a baseball game, and if I'm the announcer, I would definitely play one of the sound bits, like when somebody missed a curveball. It would just, to me, it would be pretty funny. And if the people who knew the movie heard it, they would get it too. It would just be something game day. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. Hats for Bats, Keep Bats Warm is another good one by Pedro Serrano. As you might recall, he steals one of the players' golf. This is actually Thorne's golf clubs. Now, he has these little, everybody's ever caddied around or been to a golf course knows that the golf clubs have little heads on them. This is to protect, that part of the club and all. It also adds a little style to your bag. Anyway, Serrano takes one from Dorn and puts it on his bat. He's like, "Keep it warm." And he kept it on and took it off at the beginning of every game. I thought it was hilarious. And of course, another good one in reference to the Serrano rituals is we should have got the live chicken. And of course, this was because Serrano wanted to sacrifice a live chicken before a game. They didn't want him to do that, so they just gave him KFC. Now, looking back on that, could it have been a racially implied joke? I don't know. I feel like in the moment that was probably more just we don't want him to kill a chicken. That's just stuff like now. This stuff's just changed in time, but I still thought it was funny that Willie May, should have given him that chicken because he was the other one that was copying. If you remember the snake ritual during training before they decided who was cut and who was kept, he would take the snake and draw its mouth or use its head and draw little symbols and stuff on the locker so that when they opened the door, they wouldn't have the red slip. That would mean that they were probably being cut or sent to the minors. There's another good one, of course. Serrano here. Serrano, well, more so it's a response to Serrano. He's saying, Harris says, "You're trying to say, Jesus Christ, you can't hit a curveball." Because they ask Serrano about his faith a little bit, because they know he's voodoo. But he says I like Jesus, but Jesus no help with curveball. And of course, that is a very Eddie Harris response. And then, actually, another good one, trash talk line, I would say, didn't even come from an Indians player. It came from that hitter from the Yankees who is kind of like the antagonist for Ricky Vaughn because Ricky Vaughn fails to strike him out to the end of the movie. He says, "How's your wife and my kids?" So, if you know what he's implying there, that's a pretty cut out man, Jack Taylor, because he knew that Jack was no longer in a relationship with Lynn.